Good grades? I'm going to say optional. Formal training? Being certified definitely helps. Today, a conversation that has inspired, well, we've been inspired by one of our kids based on some educational decisions that we've made that, honestly, have been really hard, but seem to be bearing fruit. It's I'll Do Better Tomorrow. Welcome to the Happy Families podcast for another Friday. Real parenting solutions every day. On Australia's most downloaded parenting podcast, we are Justin and Kylie Coulson. Every Friday, we unpack the week that was. We look at what's working and what's not working in our parenting in the hope that it's going to help you in your parenting to be more intentional, to get things more right, to help the family to function better. And today it's all about education because, Kylie, you're going to kick it off with, I'm going to call it a win.
Having been in the homeschooling system now for a couple of years, I've been intrigued and blown away with the kinds of conversations that I'm having with parents, more so who are still in traditional schooling systems and feeling really disillusioned. One of the biggest challenges that students are having outside of bullying and I guess the emotional challenges is the fact that they feel like school is just this rudimentary list of things that they have to tick off, but none of it makes sense to them because they are looking at it going, when am I ever going to use this in the real world? How is this ever going to be beneficial to me as a beautician or as a pilot? Or they just can't see the life value.
I had a conversation with a school principal just in the last few days who literally said, our school system is completely outdated, and it is not fit for purpose. His words, not mine, but certainly our experience with homeschooling, it's just been revolutionary. I love that we homeschool. It's really hard. It changes your life completely, but I'm so glad that we are doing it. But that's not really what today's I'll Do Better Tomorrow is about. This is not an advertisement for homeschool.
And it's not an advertisement for alternative schooling either, but our experience has been a really positive one. A few months ago, I was in the car driving behind a bus that was advertising industry school. I had no idea what industry school was, but I thought, you know what? I need to look this up because Lily had at that point decided that she really wanted some kind of formalised schooling, but we knew that we didn't want to send her back into traditional school system.
Lily's our fifth daughter. She was in grade 9 last year, going into grade 10 this year.
So when I looked up what industry school was, I kind of had an idea that we were looking at trade school and I was very nervous about what that meant. But as I looked more into it, I was blown away at the exposure that the kids got to different kinds of industry-based learning that would not fall under your traditional plumbers, builders, mechanics, maybe IT, engineering, that kind of stuff. But what I loved even more was the acknowledgement that their Year 12 certificate was their highest priority. I think previously to this kind of format, trade school has always been about you finish Year 10 at high school, then you go off to trade school Year 11 and 12 and you get yourself an apprenticeship or traineeship, and it's really about learning on the job. But any formalised education is lost. It no longer exists. So what I loved was the mix of these two ideas of acknowledging that for some kids, traditional schooling just doesn't work. They love hands-on approach, but it shouldn't come at the expense of an education that not only is worthy, but pertinent to their life experience. So we decided to give it a go. We had a look at all of the different options. So you could do hairdressing, you could do beautician work, you could work with horses, which was a huge plus for our Year 10 daughter. And there was just so much opportunity there. So we went along, we had an interview with the principal, and oh my goodness, I wish that every school student could have access to the format and the ethos that this school is offering our child. What I love is we have 5 weeks of education block each term. We have 5 weeks of industry block each term. What does industry block look like? When we first signed up, I didn't really understand a lot, and I thought that what was going to happen was 5 weeks of every term, Lily was going to get to spend time with horses. That's what I thought. She was also going to get signed up to do a traineeship, and she was going to start getting paid to do that while she was at school. That's what I thought was going to happen. But essentially, what I discovered over the last few weeks of term is the acknowledgement that while she is part of Industry Block, these next 2 years, year 10 and 11, are all about exposure to different kinds of trades and industry options. Up until now, Lily's had a very narrow concept of what it is she wants to do, and she is adamant that she knows what she doesn't want to do. But what Industry School has done is exposed her to lots of different options, and the conversations we are now having are, hey mum, I wonder what it would look like to work in aviation. Where the heck did that come from? Another day, I'm thinking about doing some work experience at the local police station. Do you think they'll let me? Here's a kid who for the last few years has been adamant she wants to be a beautician. She loves all things beauty, hair and makeup. And we've been really happy to encourage her to go down that road. But what I love is this acknowledgement that that's great if that's what you want to do, but let's just have a look at what else is out there. Because unless you actually have some hands-on practical experience with it, you have no idea if it's what you want to do or not want to do. And the conversations we're now having with this kid is just blowing my mind because she's actually excited about options, instead of boxing herself in and saying, this is it, this is all I want to do with my life.
After the break, I'm going to pick up on that because my I'll Do Better Tomorrow is very much associated with what you've been talking about. And I really want to address the elephant in the room when it comes to the way we approach alternative schooling. Okay, so Kylie, you've just shared this great story about Lily. She's been at the industry school. There are campuses in southeast Queensland in all of the major centres, but trade and technical vocational schools are all over the country, industry-connected schools. If you've got a child who hates school, alternative approaches, this is the thing. If you look for an alternative approach, you feel like maybe you're a failure. You feel like maybe your child's a failure. I had this conversation with a principal of one of these schools just in the last few days. And he said, he asks the kids as they sit down in class for the first time in grades 10, 11 and 12, how do you feel that you're here? And he said, overwhelmingly, they just say, I feel like I'm failing. I feel like I've failed school. I feel like I'm a failure as a person because I'm not in the mainstream of schooling. And yet, so much of mainstream schooling, as you said, doesn't feel purposeful. It doesn't feel like it works for our kids. It just feels like we're following this standardized path. And what's fascinating is when I talk to parents about this, they say, oh, totally get that school is all of these things that are not ideal. But there's an unwillingness to step outside of the mainstream with your own child. We still go with the conservative approach. Why? Because that's what we've always done.
We also need the validation that our kids are on the right path and aligned with everybody else.
Right.
You know, as a homeschool mum, I have no idea where my kids actually sit on the continuum of learning. Am I screwing them up? Like, have I taught them everything, or are there massive gaps if they were to go back into the school system? I don't know.
Here's the thing, though. I love the fact that our daughter Lily left school at the end of year 8. She left with a term to go. And for nearly a year and a half, she was homeschooled. Year 8, year 9. Like, this is not the first couple of years of school where you can probably just teach the kids to read and write and do some basic addition and subtraction and you're there. Like, this is year 8, year 9 maths and science and all those things. She's gone back to school in year 10 and she's absolutely nailing it. But she's also really happy to be there. And I think this is the main point that I want to highlight here. If you've got a child who really hates school, they need to know that life is still going to be much more successful if they just push through to the end. They just need to be in an environment that is supportive of them. And you've got things like vocational industry connected schools. You've got school-based apprenticeships, I should say. There's distance education. There's online school. There are flexible learning centres. There's a group called Edmund Rice Education Australia. They run these flexible learning centres that are specifically designed for students who've disengaged from mainstream education. There's Steiner and Montessori and other alternative philosophies.
There's busy school.
There's homeschooling. There's TAFE, community college programs. There are so many flexible ways for kids to do school if they're not doing well in the mainstream environment. And it doesn't mean that they've failed or that you've failed. It's that we're using, to quote Scott Galloway, medieval institutions to train our children to live in an era where we have godlike technology. And they don't match up. They simply don't.
It is an acknowledgement that each of our children is individual. And we have a different way of doing things and learning.
This is what the school principal said to me. He said, every school gives lip service to the fact that they treat each child as an individual.
No, they're a number.
And that's what he said. He said, but they don't. They don't, because if that individual child is not able to conform to the mainstream school expectation, then they just don't fit. And there's only a limited amount that most schools will do before they say, you just don't belong here. This is not working out. These alternative schools are not supposed to be dumping grounds for kids that don't fit. As parents, if we can adjust our view of schooling and be a little bit radical, our children are going to actually enjoy themselves so much more. Here's the biggest thing for us. We've got this daughter who is now at the industry school. No, this is not a paid advertisement. We're not doing anything. They don't know we're doing this podcast because we're talking about our daughter, not the school. But she's gone back to school in grade 10. Their ethos is, if it won't fly in the workplace, it doesn't fly at school. So are they perfect with a no bullying policy or anything? No, of course, no school is. But my goodness, they are responsive to issues. More than that, though, she's getting exposure, as you've said, massive exposure to so much opportunity in so many industries. Her eyes are wide, but also the schooling expectation is different. She will finish year 12. She's not going to do an ATAR path. Oh, but guess what? When you go to these schools, they're so flexible that you can still study early university programming, which means that you can get into university without the ATAR and without having to go through all the stress and drama and headache and awfulness of what so many of our kids experience at school. So your I'll Do Better Tomorrow links in with mine, because you're saying we've had this win. Our daughter's experiencing range and breadth because we've stepped out of the mainstream school system. We've gone with an industry-focused school and it's had an impact. Mine is, I had a conversation with a school principal of one of these schools, and it's been such a refreshing way to see that people are thinking of disrupting education. You know what else he said? The biggest stumbling block is parents, because they don't want to think, what have I done? Why is my child not doing well? And how does it reflect on me? He said, if we can get past the pride and the status that's associated with going to this school versus that school, we can do so much. You know what else he said? 50% of the kids in this year's intake in his school are coming from independent schools. That is, these are parents who have been paying for a private school for their kids and it's not working out, and they've said, we've got to do something else. And for whatever reason, the state school system is just another version of private school from their perspective. So they've gone to an industry-focused, a vocational-focused school and gone, all of a sudden our kids are so happy. Last quick comment. I couldn't find the office. And so I looked across and I saw a boy, grade 11. I said, hey, could you please help me to find the office? This kid was one of those independent school students who'd swapped. He'd gone into this new school in grade 11 because he hated school. I said to him, how's it going now? He said, I just love it. I love the learning. I love being at school. I'm excited to finish year 11 and year 12. I've already got my eye on a couple of different apprenticeships that I can do, and I feel like my future makes sense. And I just was like, oh my goodness, why are we doing this to our kids? Why are we pushing them so hard into systems that don't work for them? And you know what? As an electrician, he'll be fully qualified by like the age of 21. He's going to be making more money than university graduates for at least 5, 6, 7 years, if not more, because we've got a skills shortage and this kid's going to fly. Anyway, my I'll Do Better Tomorrow is let go of the pride. If you've got a high school kid or even a younger kid who's struggling at school and it just doesn't feel like they belong, there are so many alternatives. And I know it's meant to be an I'll do better tomorrow. It is. We've done 2 different alternatives, an industry school for our daughter and homeschooling, and our children are better and happier and more confident because of it.
I think about a conversation you and I had a number of weeks ago on the pod about the acknowledgement that I would rather my kids hang out with other adults as they do life.
Totally.
And what I love about this model is my child is surrounded by other industry-based adults who they can learn and glean from. And the exposure is enormous because they are not just with a classroom teacher who either they gel with or not gel with. They are being invited into other spaces where they get to learn and just understand the world through different perspectives. It's amazing.
This was not the podcast I thought we were going to record, but I love where the conversation went. The take-home message: school is important. Education matters, but there are so many different ways that you can do it and your children will benefit so long as you value education. It doesn't have to be the standard way. I'm going to recommend a book, Dark Horse by Todd Rose. It's just popped into my head, and I think that it really highlights the different ways that people can find joy, success, and meaning in life. Let's wrap it up. The Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Rulon from Bridge Media. If you would like more information and resources about making your family happier, visit us at happyfamilies.com.au and have a great weekend.